During week 1, we explored the essentials of what an Arduino can do, essentially taking two or more unintelligent components and allowing them to respond to each other. My first experimentation used a light sensor. When light levels changed in its vicinity, the data was read by the Arduino, which then sent power to the LED. During this time, I also experimented with a basic pressure sensor, which acted as a simple switch connecting the circuit and allowing the current to flow through. The first shoot with the dancers allowed us to collaborate on ideas of light and shadow. Using a projector screen, we experimented with the expectations of a shadow. This visually strong silhouette work influenced later design decisions. Our first shoot with the technology involved a series of white boxes. Each box contained a grid of LED lights controlled by a light sensor through an Arduino. We had a lot of problems with these, as on a larger scale, and the dim lighting required to make the LEDs stand out, the sensor was unpredictable and unreliable. I began to experiment with infrared sensors. These seem to be more stable in low lighting conditions, but because one sensor emits an infrared wave, which is detected by the neighbouring infrared phototransistor, they are easily affected by infrared waves being emitted by sunlight or fluorescent tubes. We did, however, find them somewhat more reliable enough to shoot a small amount of footage. There was a point during the development of all this technology we realised that for all the effort I was putting into stabilising the sensors, there was actually little to no enhancement to the performance, and the dancers were left bewildered and unsure of how to react with the technology. By taking a step backwards and developing the possibilities with a more elementary pressure sensor system, and giving way to Heidegger's scrutiny of art and technology, we began to develop our piece in multiple different directions, allowing for several unique phases within the performance, each with their own response to light. Taking this into account, we developed larger boards with the LEDs still in a grid format. These were controlled by pressure sensors, creating a more stable performance environment for the dancers. At this point, Richard Coyne's writing, The Tuning of Place, became a significant influence. He stipulates that digital devices are mechanisms used to synchronize people's relations and interactions. This concept was developed by the dancers into a score influenced by the technology. The light turning on synchronized their movement and instructed them to do something. We then experimented with the use of pressure pads, allowing audience interaction within the performance. Jerzy Kriste, an innovator of experimental theatre, believed that rather than competing against the spectacle of film, the focus should instead be on the root of theatre, actors co-creating the event with their spectators. In one of Kriste's better-known pieces, The Tragical History of Dr. Faustus, an intimate and dynamic relationship is created between actors and spectators by seating audience members as guests at Faust's Last Supper, with the action unfolding around them. By handing over the control of the pressure pads to the audience, we gave them a certain amount of power over the dance, thus beginning to blur the distinction between performer and spectator. Perhaps one could consider this as an interruption of the expectations of a dance performance. During our production week, we supersized the boards that would hang in the performance space. This would create a silhouette of the dancer when they moved in front of them. At this point, our pressure sensors also started to break. The more we rehearsed, the worse they got. The need for new pressure pads led me to explore the medium in which the audience communicated with the dancers. A low stage-like area was developed. The audience would stand on this, activating the pressure sensors built into it. The stage-like structure would further blur the distinction between spectator and performer. The pressure sensors themselves, arranged in a row of 3 and filled with LED lights of their own, created a visual link between the performance space and the audience. The LEDs in the pressure sensor panels are, however, not controlled by the pressure sensors themselves. Over the previous few weeks, I had conducted research into the infrared sensors. By using a different kind of chip, I was able to upload a more detailed code, creating a more stable and reliable circuit. Unfortunately, the dancers were uncomfortable using the revamped sensors to control the main panels, as they'd been so unreliable previously. The infrared circuit was instead used solely in the pressure sensor panels as an entirely independent circuit, so they would not interrupt the performance should they fail. As audience members step onto the panels, the infrared sensors would be activated, detecting the proximity of the user, and the LEDs inside would light up. The performance itself consisted of 3 phases. The first, a solo dancer moves around the space attracted towards each light, only able to move when a light is on, each light initiating a different quality of movement. She is joined by several other dancers, but each of these are only activated by the light they have entered from behind. The audience dictates when and how the dancers move by activating the pressure sensors. The second, 2 dancers involved in a theatrical style conversation. A scenario is given and the dancers play out a musical style charades, but to contrasting music. The audience is able to dictate who can talk and for how long, as the dancers must be still when their light is off. The third phase involves two dancers, one trying to reach each light as it is turned on, the other trying to stop her. The audience is encouraged to pick their player and activate the lights in a way that supports their dancer, for example, creating more opportunities for their dancer to reach the light ahead of her opponent. The live performance went well, with all technology working as it should. We had a large number of the audience participate in controlling the dancers, particularly getting into and enjoying the final phase.